You are listening to the Charles Bonnet Syndrome podcast. My name is Shaimond Foy, and today's special guest is Nina Chesworth. She is a volunteer for Esme's Umbrella, which is a UK-based charity organization that helps people with Charles Bonnet Syndrome. I'm so glad that I have you here with me today, Nina. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's a nice sunny day here in the UK, in Manchester. We don't usually get that much sun, so it's nice to be sat in the garden. Yeah, just doing a bit of work, catching up on a few volunteer stuff.
That's nice to hear. It's good to take advantage of it. It's a little bit of a rainy day here, but they always say that April showers bring May flowers. I'm here in New York, by the way, so that's to be expected.
Yeah, well, they do say April showers, don't they? So I always excuse April in Manchester for the rain.
And we certainly need it, don't we?
Yeah.
I definitely want to mention to the audience that I know you because, as I said in the beginning, you are a volunteer with Esme's Umbrella, and you've done so many things to help so many people that are visually impaired. And you ran groups in the past. I don't know if you still currently do them, support groups and family member support groups. But if you can start by telling the audience, what is the eye condition that you have?
So it's a little bit of a complex one, really. I was born sighted, but I caught the flu virus when I was 2 years old, and the virus attacked my eyes and left me with problems, mainly around my cornea, and it left me with cataract and problems with the lens. So throughout my life, I've had several surgeries to try and correct the sight, having corneal grafts, lens transplants, and trying to remove the cataracts. That kind of went from about the age of 2 up to the age of 26. So I had varied levels of vision all of my life. Very short-sighted, always had to use magnification, and the vision when the cornea wasn't working was quite foggy, so kind of like looking through a steamed mirror. After the years of having that different varied levels of sight, I had an accident at work, and it resulted in me losing my right eye. After having corneal surgery to that eye, for the first time I was able to read a newspaper, but the universe decided otherwise, and I lost the right eye. And then I still had sight in the left eye, but it was limited, and again with that foggy vision. Then 6 years ago now, I had an accident at home where it resulted in losing the retina out of the left eye. So that caused me to lose my sight completely. So I am now blind. I still have the tiniest little bit of light perception, but I have no sight at all now. And that was due to two separate accidents, not the originating eye condition.
That's a lot. It's definitely a lot, and it started a long time ago, from the time that you were two. And I just want to make sure. So, when you caught the flu when you were two, and you had situations that developed with your eyes, did you have you had some eyesight in between until you had the other two accidents, or was it already very severely? You had a severe vision loss from the early condition when you were younger.
Yeah, I did have sight. It was usable sight as well. It was varied. It was very up and down. As I said, when the cornea wasn't working, that caused a kind of fog. So that kind of blurred the vision. But I've always been short-sighted, so I've always had to use magnification all the way through school, higher education. I was always using magnification and large print.
I do want to tell the audience that you do have CBS, which is Charles Bonnet Syndrome. I didn't mention that, and I'm always grateful when someone that has CBS can come on to the podcast because I want to hear firsthand experiences of people, and there's a lot of commonalities between the different symptoms or things people experience with CBS, but there are a lot of differences too. And the more people that can share their story, the better I think it could be. So, when did you first start experiencing symptoms of CBS?
Well, looking back at it now, I think I started in my early teens when the sight did deteriorate and I had them bad patches. I used to see faces in bedspreads and on wallpaper, kind of patterns. And I did mention it to my mum as a teenager, but she just said, "Oh no, it's just your imagination, just overactive imagination. There's nothing there." So I didn't think anything of it, and because I still had sight, I definitely didn't think anything of it really. And then it was when I lost the sight completely, so 6 years ago, I was in the hospital and I'd just come around from the surgery from them trying to save the eye, and I could see kind of waves of blue and red, kind of like clouds. And I thought, oh my God, they've saved some of my sight. I can still see something. I can see colour. They've saved my sight. So I told my mum, and she ran off and got the doctor. The doctor come back, and these words will stick with me for the rest of my life. The doctor said to me, "I can assure you, we haven't saved your sight. It's just your mind playing tricks on you." So I was
Wow.
kind of like, oh, what does that mean? What do you mean my mind's playing tricks on me? And to be honest, they didn't have many answers for me, um, if not none. They weren't helpful. They had no information. I don't even think they knew what Charles Bonnet was. So that was the first time I experienced it, but didn't know what it was. It was a few months later that I couldn't cope with it really. It just got too much, and I decided to share with my family what I was experiencing, because those blue and red clouds developed into more colours that then developed into shapes and patterns that then developed into faces and then became quite menacing faces. So they were kind of like zombies with no eyes in the sockets and blood dripping down the cheeks. And they kind of just floated and stayed in front of me. So I couldn't escape them. My Charles Bonnet syndrome is there all day, every day, from when I wake to when I get to sleep. And in that first period, for those few, for like 5 or so weeks, yeah, I didn't want to tell anybody about what I was experiencing. I really did keep it to myself because I was so afraid that they'd think I was having a nervous breakdown and I couldn't manage my sight loss, or I was, falling into depression because of the sight loss. So yeah, I did keep it to myself for a while.
You said that you had a procedure for your eyes, and after you had the procedure, you started seeing the blue waves and different things like that. And I've actually heard other people with Charles Bonnet syndrome say that. They will say that they had poor eyesight initially, and then they had cataract surgery. And after they had the cataract surgery, they started having hallucinations. And I heard someone else say that they've had glaucoma, and after they've had a surgical procedure, they started having the hallucinations. So that is interesting. Obviously, that's not the case for everybody, but I've heard it from more than enough people to know that somehow, some way, that could be playing a factor for certain people. So that's
Mm.
really interesting. And obviously, you said you experienced seeing things in in the pillow, in the sheets before, but I wonder why that is. And I don't know. That's something we could ask a doctor, or maybe they would have to do some
Mm.
research. Have you heard other people say that, like after my cataract surgery, or after my glaucoma surgery, or retinal surgery, that they've experienced Charles Bonnet?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, because I have ran support groups, Esme's friends groups, on behalf of Esme's Umbrella as the volunteer. And so I have got to speak to a few people and heard their stories and experiences around it. And yeah, I think that is one thing that has come up. But also another thing, people's hallucinations I've heard get worse, the severity increases, the images may darken, become, a bit more frightening, or become more frequent around kind of stressful situations as well. So whether there's a connection there between surgery and being in hospital and the stress and anxiety and around all of that, maybe there's something in that, maybe that's a triggering point as well, because I have heard from a lot of people that stress, anxiety, isolation, and there has been a research paper done in the UK around isolation, which was done during the pandemic, and how isolation impacts on Charles Bonnet syndrome, which you can find that on Esme's Umbrella's website as well. So I do think there are a few triggers. I know for myself and speaking with other people as well through the groups and Esme's Umbrella that certain foods can trigger and make the hallucinations again worse, more frequent, things like that. So yeah, there's so much research to be done and lots to do. But I think it does all start with this and what you're doing now, and allowing people to share their experiences, because we can't look at what needs to be done or what is happening without people sharing. So, I appreciate the people that do share their stories and experiences with me, as well as people like yourself who are doing things like this.
It really means so much to be able to have different platforms like Esme's Umbrella and what Scott Muirden is doing in Australia, and Lucia Ricardo, and so many people. I can go on and on that she's doing in
Yes.
Canada. So it's really important. I'm thinking back to when you had the procedure and the doctor said your mind is playing tricks on you. The first thing that came to my mind is, oh, did he know about Charles Bonnet? But you said no one had mentioned Charles Bonnet at all. And I was thinking, imagine how much better it would have been for you if he would have said, wow, that may be Charles Bonnet syndrome. You have a visual impairment. It's a possibility this is a condition that is known. So either he didn't know about it or decided not to tell you about it. But that's a common theme, even on this podcast. Judith Pod said she's trying to get literature out there. Scott Muirden, Lucia Ricardo, all the people that are leading in different countries are trying to get pamphlets and information out to ophthalmologist offices and trying to educate new students that are doctors, and to let them know to tell their patients about this condition. And they can't tell them about it if they don't know about it. And to just have like a one page or a little pamphlet it could really help.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. If I'd have had that initial knowledge, it could have saved me a lot of heartache and upset and stress for sure. And that's why I think I do the work that I do now, and volunteer with Esme's Umbrella and talk about it as much as I can in different places and platforms, because I don't. I would hate to think that somebody would have to go through what I went through and not have somebody there to support them and tell them about the condition and have that knowledge from the start, because it's just unnecessary. If these doctors, nurses, care workers, all of these people that are interacting with people with sight loss, if they have the knowledge and awareness of these things, sometimes that's all it takes as well. It's just that awareness. They don't have to put grand things in place. It's just having that information to hand. So yeah, there's lots of other things as well that we've been doing. I work for Visionary, which is a charity in the UK which supports local sight loss organisations. We're hosting a children and young people's webinar, which is only for our members at the moment, but the model of what we're doing could be something that could be taken forward further for the public. And that's to create awareness of CBS within young people and children, because anyone of any age can develop Charles Bonnet syndrome. It's down to the sight loss, not the age, because I think that's a common misconception, that it's only affected people who are older. So yeah, that's one thing we're doing. And then we also done a film, which I think you know about, which I was in the film along with Miles Northwood, and it was a wonderful experience actually.
Yeah, I want to talk about the film a little while, but I do want to go back to the early days of you having these hallucinations and experiencing these symptoms. So when did you actually find out what Charles Bonnet syndrome was?
So as I said, it was about 5 weeks after that initial surgery and losing my sight. It's about 5 weeks later that it just got too much. I was literally sat on the sofa in a huddle. Everyone around me had started getting back into their routine after the accident, and at first everyone was there every minute of every day, and then it slowly everyone just went back to their own lives. So I was more and more on my own, and yeah, I was just like kind of huddled, and these zombies and snarling dogs and tigers were kind of just there looking at me all the time, and I just didn't know what to do. I was just so grinded down by it and afraid, and I just cracked, and that's when I spoke to my family, and they were like, right, let's see what we can do. And they were so patient and understanding with me as well, because I must I often think they probably thought, oh my God, what's happening to her? Is she having a breakdown? Has she got mental health problems? What's going, because they wouldn't have known either. So, I do thank them looking back now and for their patience with it. So we started doing a bit of research to try and find out what it was, and there was a lot coming up around psychosis and schizophrenia and things like that. So obviously that gets you a bit worried still. And then we came across an article from Judith, and we read that and we were like, wow, oh, maybe it's this. So straight away I emailed Judith. She came back to me within really quickly, actually, I'd probably say within a day. And she was like, yep, it sounds like you have Charles Bonnet syndrome. So she invited me to their patient support day over here in York, and I went along and I got to speak to Dominic Fitch, who's Professor Dominic Fitch, who's the leading specialist in CBS in the UK. I got to speak to other people who were experiencing it. So straight away, I just kind of felt a sense of relief and that I wasn't alone in this, with this condition that I'd never heard of or nobody had heard of. And it was like, oh my God, it's an actual thing. It's got a name. It's a condition. It's not me.
One thing that stands out to me is that you said that you told your family after a couple of weeks, because some people have it for years and they don't tell their family. So,
Mm.
and your family was very supportive of you. So, what kind of
Yeah.
advice would you give to someone that maybe is nervous about telling their family about the condition?
I think always just being honest and true to yourself. If it's something that you think will help and support you, then, do it. If it's something that you think might make things worse, then there are ways and other people that you could speak to first and then bring it into the family. I think always making sure that it's right for you first initially. And then I'd say, showing them, being open and kind of having that information there to hand with you. So having pamphlets, leaflets, having the website, Esme's Umbrella's website, having anything that explains CBS to hand, so that when you do sit down with your family, you have that evidence there as well to back up what you're telling them.
There's not a one size fits all. I like what you said because some people may not be able to tell their family and they have to
Mm.
tell a friend or someone. But if at all possible, it's always good to have someone that you can talk to about it, if possible. That's not always easy, even if it's someone that may be a professional or something. And so it's not a one size fits all. And I like the fact that you and your family worked together to figure out what it was. That is so important, and it's good that there's resources out there because Esme's Umbrella is one of the first things that I found about it. And then YouTube, it wasn't as many YouTube videos as it is now, but there were some out there. So those tools can really help. And like you said, have a pamphlet or have something because that can maybe make it easier to explain. Because if somebody
Yeah,
just says, "Hey, I'm seeing horses in my living room,"
yeah,
somebody can, it may not turn out good depending on how the person responds to that or something. But if
yeah,
someone says, "Hey, this is something I've heard about," then it could maybe make a difference.
yeah, definitely for sure. And the support element of it, with there's one thing that pre my sight loss, I was a very stubborn, independent woman who thought I can prove to the world that I can do everything just as well as anybody else. I didn't like to accept help. I wanted to prove something. And then when I lost my sight, I kind of came to terms with the fact that I can't be like that anymore. I need to accept help. It is a part of my life now. It is a part of who I am. And that's not a bad thing because the help has helped me grow and develop and grow in resilience and strength. And that support network, and most importantly, it's the peer support. So it's speaking to people who understand exactly what you're going through. Well, not exactly, because as you said, everyone is different. We experience things differently. Sight loss is a spectrum. CBS is to a degree as well, but it's just having that kind of baseline understanding of what you're experiencing. I can't really put into words how beneficial that is, and it has been for me, and I do think, or I hope that it is for others as well.
So when you found out about Charles Bonnet syndrome, you said you had a relief knowing that it was this condition and getting more information about it. But how do you cope with it? And I'm sure it could have changed over the years, but what are some things that you've done to be able to live with this condition?
It's definitely changed over the years. I'm a lot more at peace with it now than I was in the first year. It started off with it was really in the way. So when tigers would appear, or zombies, or things like that, or even unicorns and bubbles, when those kind of things appeared, it would distract me from what I was doing. Sometimes I've fallen down the stairs because of it as well, walk into doors. So it was a real big distraction at the start. And as I said earlier, my CBS is there all the time. So it was difficult to escape from it and concentrate on other things. Whereas now I'm 6 years down the line, I have definitely now accepted that it is a part of me and it isn't going anywhere, no matter what the literature says out there. Because when we first looked into it, there was a lot of, oh, it only lasts a year, 18 months that I came across, and I was like, oh, well, that's good. But myself and speaking with other people, that's not the case at all. So yeah, I think I've done a lot of work around building resilience and acceptance, and I've done a lot of grief work as well. And that was because of my sight loss too, as well as Charles Bonnet syndrome. I think the two kind of work together. So I went on retreats. It was a grief work retreat, 6 days away, where we done a lot of therapy and focused on a lot of stuff like that. So that really helped, and that built up my resilience to be able to look at the acceptance piece around it as well, and understanding that this is part of me now, as well as my blindness. So as well as being blind, I do have CBS and it's not going anywhere. Like, I won't get my sight back. So it is working towards that acceptance piece. And I still have bad days. I still have bad days with my sight and with my CBS. But I have a handle on it. I can manage it a lot better. And that's through doing things like yoga, meditation, as I said before, about triggers with food. So recognizing that certain foods might make it worse, so knowing to avoid them. I think with time comes understanding, and you do get to manage it a lot better.
I'm just wondering, do you think that it makes it a little bit easier to manage CBS when you learn to accept your blindness or your visual impairment and accept the CBS? Like, could that maybe make it easier possibly? Or just accepting the CBS may be enough? Or do you think it could be different for different people?
I think it can be different for different people. We are all different. We do all experience things differently, but I think there is that definite connection between the two. I think once there is acceptance around your eye condition, that I think does lead into that acceptance around Charles Bonnet syndrome. And the understanding that the two are connected, because you don't get CBS without sight loss. So having that understanding.
There's one thing to say accept CBS, and then there's another thing to give somebody tips about accepting CBS. So, what are some practical things that you've done to help you accept CBS in your life?
I think educating myself firstly was the first thing, making sure that I had that understanding and awareness of what CBS is, the history of it, where it came from, knowing what the different types of hallucinations are, even speaking with other people, finding out other stories, that really helped. And then there's the practical things like meditation, yoga, breath work. The breath work, I must admit, has really helped me. Again, it might not help everybody. With myself, when I do breath work, you kind of get that release through breath work and you let go of things and you kind of clear the mind. So for me, that's really helped. The It doesn't make the hallucinations go away. I'm not saying that, do a bit of breath work and meditation and they'll disappear, because I don't think that would happen. But it does allow you to have that sense of letting go.
So, what are some of the types of things that you have experienced over the years with Charles Bonnet syndrome? Some of the hallucinations or things you've experienced.
So, as I said, they're there all day, every day. So they kind of float in front of me. And they're layered. So for me, I have a kind of layered CBS hallucination. So I have a background, middle ground, and foreground. And in the background, there's usually like that foggy, cloudy, colourful effect, or kind of like a array of like a million dots, for instance. And then in the middle ground, there might be a kaleidoscope of patterns, cartoon characters. They've made appearances a few times. Homer Simpson, Mickey Mouse, Pooh Bear, and Pooh Bear incidentally was my son's favourite teddy as a child. And Pooh Bear usually makes an appearance when I'm having a nice day with Dylan, or I'm thinking about him. So I don't know whether there's a connection there to that emotional part of the brain. I'm not sure. I would like to say, but there's potentially more research to be done. And and bubbles, stars, like like a lava lamp effect as well. I get quite often. It's like different colours, like the lava in the lava lamp when it floats up and around. And I don't know sometimes whether I get these kind of hallucinations because I had sight before, so I know what these things look like as well. So sometimes I don't know whether it's to do with memory. I get the words and the numbers, but you can't read them. So that's a good one. I also get ones that are a bit more frightening. So again, like I've mentioned, the zombies, the snarling dogs, tigers. Mine are very cartoony though as well. The tigers look like real tigers, so much so that you can see the stripes in the fur and the fangs. But the zombies and the dogs are more cartoony. I remember having one once actually. It was, and again, I don't know if this is to do with memory, but do you remember Ghostbusters, the first film where Winona Ryder turns into that dog on the top of the
Yes,
building?
yes, I remember.
It's that dog. He pops up a few times. For me, the most important thing as well, seeing all of these different things, is that I understand that they're not real. You know, that again comes back to that acceptance part, and being able to accept CBS, because once you know and understand that the hallucinations are not real, they become so much less frightening. Now it's a case of, it's the dog's back, or oh, there's the zombie again, and you're able to rationalize it a little bit more, so it bothers you less, and you can just get on with what you're doing in your day to day.
That's definitely tough, and it seems like the yoga, the meditation, your mindset is helping you do that. Also, being able to talk, and one thing, even probably volunteering, because I realize too with volunteering, you're helping others, but you're getting helped in return. You feel a sense of gratitude, a sense of purpose, and something that you say can touch someone
Yeah.
else. You say that you have CBS all day, and majority of the people that I've spoken with or listened talk about it say that they usually get it at night when they're relaxing or early in the morning, but it's different for everybody. So when you have it all day, let's just say, for instance, if there's a tiger that's in your bedroom with you, and throughout the day you're going to go throughout the house obviously, but let's just say that, will that tiger stay there all day, or will it change to be like a cartoon and then a tiger and then a landscape? Or I'm just curious.
Yeah, so for me, the tiger would change. throughout the day. It constantly moves actually. Sometimes I do feel a little bit seasick with it if I'm rushing too much as well, because the images do constantly evolve and change in front of me. The tiger will follow me, so I know through speaking with other people that some people see snakes on the living room floor, or bats or spiders crawling up the walls in their bedroom, and then once they leave that room, it wouldn't follow them. They'd go back in and it might still be in that room. But for me, they're everywhere with me. So, and I think because I can't see the sofa or can't see the floor or the TV, they don't have anything to kind of sit against. They just kind of float in front of me. So I think that's why they follow.
Do you find that if you're stressed and you're having a rough day or rough patch in life, that the hallucinations are more horrifying than when you're more calm? Like, they're more pleasant? Does that happen with you?
Yes, definitely, definitely. They don't always get more frightening, the images, but they definitely get more intense. And I think it's the more stressed, anxious, or worked up I am, the less I'm able to ignore them. So I think that's the difference. I think they don't necessarily get worse, but they just won't, like, I can't ignore them. They don't go away. Like, because they're there all the time, I've developed a skill of, just kind of getting on with things, and just, they're just there. I just ignore them. They're just a part of my space now. um, but when I'm stressed or anxious or nervous or things like that, um, they do get more intense and it's harder to ignore them. For instance, if I do public speaking and things like that, that's when it'll get me. But I think that is connected to that kind of anxiety and stress. So there are things that I do, like there's pressure points in your hand that you can kind of push on or press, that relaxes and calms the nervous system down, which ultimately then helps me kind of center and come back to a focus point, which then helps me begin to ignore the CBS.
I've heard that when you're actually experiencing CBS, a lot of the things that you hear in the meetings and in the support groups, it can be difficult in the moment to incorporate that or try those techniques because you're so alarmed or you're so frightened in that moment. But what are some
hmm
things that you do? It sounds like the mindfulness helps you and being present. But what are some things that you do in the moment to help remind you or to help calm you when you're actually having that hallucination?
I think, firstly, I tell myself it's not real, and I repeat that in my head, especially if I'm in a public space. I can't stand there saying, "Oh, it's not real. They're not real. They're not," because people might look at me in a strange way. But
Yeah.
I say it to myself in my head and repeat it. These are not real. It's CBS. These are not real. It's CBS. And then secondly, in that moment, I come back to my breath. Like, the breath is so important for calming that nervous system down, and just bringing the mind to the breath, the in, the out, and that just helps calm you down.
Wow. I wouldn't mind switching to the film, A Spectrum. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and anything that you're willing to share about that film?
Yeah, so I think I need to be careful what I say because it isn't available yet for the public to watch. But we have had a few premieres of it to the filmmakers and to the sight loss sector in the UK. We also shown it at the recent Esme's Umbrella Information Day in Manchester that we held in March. So there are, some people that have seen it. It's a documentary film about Charles Bonnet Syndrome. So interviewing myself, Miles Northwood, and the specialists, as Judith and the doctors, and so they talk about the research elements and the medical side to Charles Bonnet syndrome, and myself and Miles share our experiences of the condition. And the great thing about it is that the filmmakers have cleverly integrated imagery into the audio description of the condition. So they kind of bring to life the hallucinations, which I think from feedback from people that have watched it. So family members of mine came to the day and they've watched it, and they said it's, the images are amazing, and they were very taken aback by it and like, wow, is that what you see? So it's, for me, being a part of something that will be a tool to help create that awareness and kind of put into place, or make a reality what you try and explain to your friends and family and doctors and things like that, because that is one of the hardest things, is trying to describe to people what it is that you're seeing. So I think this film is going to be a great tool for that, to bring that to life. It was a great experience to be a part of it. We done, I felt like a little film star, I did. We went on site.
Yeah,
We were doing different, they were very creative men, they're very creative filmmakers. They've entered it into a few film festivals as well. They were hoping of being a part of Disability Fest, I think it is. It's a film festival in America, and they entered it into that, and we were hoping that we'd come on tour in America, but I don't think that came off. But they are still looking at other film festivals. It's an amazing piece of work. I was very proud to be a part of it.
I
There's so
can't wait to
talented.
watch it. Yeah, I can't wait
Yeah,
to watch it. I know it's going to be great, and I'm sure you'll get into some film festivals in America, or you can create your own event. Because sometimes, because
yeah,
I had a little bit of a time where I was pursuing film career, and sometimes you don't get into the film festival, but you can organize your own event, rent out a little
yeah,
room, and get a projector, like what you guys have been doing in the UK. So
yeah.
yeah, that is
Yeah, but
great.
I'll keep you posted on when it'll be released and available to everybody.
I really look forward to that. Thank you. If there's someone that's listening now and they have Charles Bonnet syndrome and they're having a really difficult time coping with this, what kind of advice or words of wisdom would you share with them to help them out a little bit?
I'd say you're not alone, and I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but you're really not alone. This is a condition that has been in the shadows for quite a while, but it's time now. It's time to come forward and share those experiences and stories, because in you sharing, it helps others. That is definitely what I've learned as well. And just seek help, find people that you can talk to, go to groups, have a look on Esme's Umbrella's website. There are some online support groups there. Find any local to you. Speak to your local sight loss charities, because there is a lot more awareness with CBS now within the sight loss sectors. So there'll be more support being provided through them. And just be brave. I know it can be scary, and I know it's a hard thing to have and to deal with on top of your eye condition, but it will get better.
I really like what you say. You said it will get better. Tell yourself that. I was just
Yeah,
thinking this is random, but it was on my mind. I was thinking about a friend of mine that I have, and we were talking about working and doing jobs and things you have to do in life. And we were talking about doing jobs that you don't like. And he said, if I don't like the job, I'll tell myself I like the job. And I was like, wow, you got to do things like that, because if you wake up every day saying, I don't like this job, I don't like this job, I'm so frustrated, my boss, or this or that, or the schedule, it's just going to make life worse. So
yeah,
by hearing you say that, it will get better. Tell yourself that it will get better. Tell
yeah,
yourself
definitely.
things. I am beautiful. I am valuable. Words of affirmation. They've done that in Dr. Gary Cusick's group. And that was something that they used to do occasionally, and just say some words of
Yeah,
affirmation, say something
I
positive, because
had,
words are powerful. And sometimes that's all you have. You
yeah,
can't,
definitely.
yeah, like yourself, you're saying you get it all the time, which is difficult,
Yeah,
but you're still
yeah.
going on and you're still helping and you're still doing,
Yeah.
making the best
So
of
I do have an affirmation that I started when I lost my sight, and going through this journey. And it's, I see all of me, I feel all of me, I love all of me. And I repeat that every day. Not all day, not every day, probably 5 hours, 7 days, I'll say that to myself. I'm human. I don't, that, you know, you have your ups and downs. But I like that it has helped me that much that I've actually had see, feel, love tattooed on my arm with a mandala, which is the symbol of growth. So even though I can't see the tattoo, I've had it tattooed on me because I know that it is something that has really helped me through this journey and will continue to help me as well because it's still ongoing. I'm not fixed. I'm still working through everything too.
Do you use anything to assist you, like any canes or seeing eye dog or anything like that? Is the first question. And then what would you have to say? Because I come across people that are visually impaired that are hesitant to do those things because it's a sign that they have a visual impairment or they feel that it's a weakness. But other people say once they do it, they say it empowers them and they say it really, really is helpful. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so I was one of them people that refused to have any kind of symbol that made me look disabled. Again, before my complete sight loss, I had mobility training when I lost the right eye, but I would still refuse to use it. And I think if I'd had accepted it then, I might not be where I am now. But there's no point looking backwards. I think it is a difficult thing and it is a personal thing. I think for me, since losing the sight, I now use a long cane and I use it with pride. It's took me a bit to get to that point, and to make me feel better about using a cane, I've personalised my cane. I have a rainbow cane, so each segment of my cane is a different colour, like a rainbow. And then I have a black cane, which is a little controversial, I must admit. I've had a few people say, well, it's supposed to be white, that's the symbol. But I've got a black one with Manchester bees on it and diamantes all over the handle. So I've personalised it, I've made it a part of me, about a part of my personality. And that's helped me to wear it with pride, use it with pride, and accept it that it is what I need to do now to be independent, to get out there, to continue my life.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So that just seems like a common thread, and that's
Yeah, I
incredible.
think it is.
Yeah, yes, it's altering and it changes your life. So to hear you, I like the fact that you spoke about dealing with your vision loss and then also Charles Bonnet. And it's hard enough to have vision loss and to deal with that, especially when you've had sight. It's probably always difficult, but if you were born blind, maybe it could potentially be a little bit easier because you don't have that to fall back on your visions or your
Mm,
everything. But that's difficult enough. And then we have Charles Bonnet syndrome. It can really
mm,
be difficult. And I've heard of Charles Bonnet syndrome, it can turn some people's lives upside down. But like you said, it
mm,
can get better. And you have to hold
yeah.
on to that and find ways to incorporate it because you shared so many things. And if someone gets one thing from this or encouragement to last one more moment or one more day, this episode is worth it or this podcast is worth it. Or if someone hears this podcast and they say, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to learn how to
Mm,
research this, or I'm going to learn how to do whatever it is, then it's
mm.
definitely worth it. So can you speak a little bit about, I know that you've held support groups and you've done support groups and Esme's friends. Do you still do those types of things? And if so, can you tell people how they can maybe join or participate?
So I don't personally do them anymore because since taking on a job with a charity in the UK, my time my time limits are just yeah, I just can't manage the two, as well as being a mum as well and all of life admin and things like that. But I do still keep in touch with Judith and the team she has. And now that I am working within the sight loss sector, um, we do try and encourage that connection between Esme's umbrella and the local charities as well to make sure that there are those support groups being started, continuing to run. Um, but I can definitely share with you Judith's website, which is www.charlesbonnet, and it's BONNET syndrome.uk. And she lists on there all of the available support groups. And some of them are online, some of them are in person, but the ones online are accessible for UK, wider than the UK, because I know when I was running my group, I had people from around the world joining over Zoom. So it's not just restricted to the UK. So do take a look at Esme's Umbrella's website. And then, as I said before, getting in touch with your local charity, because there is a lot more awareness now of CBS, and hopefully those charities are starting to provide support groups as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And technology is a beautiful thing because if this was 150 or 200 years ago, and you're living in a small town, rural town somewhere, and how do you deal with this? You don't have
Yeah,
anybody. You may not have even had psychologists back then, or nobody in your town. Even now, there's small towns where you just don't have the resources or the support. They may not even have things for the visually impaired. I mean, every state is supposed to have it. Here in America, and I'm sure in the UK is similar, but being able to virtually tap into somebody
yeah.
is so
And
important.
that's the thing as well. It's having that, and coming back to that awareness and education and learning. We can all learn from each other. The UK can learn from America, vice versa. And then that's a great thing, and technology enables that. And the support as well, the support of the Facebook, there's some Facebook groups as well for Charles Bonnet Syndrome. So having that, no matter where you are in the world, knowing that there are people there that can support you, and you can reach out to, it is an amazing thing. I do love technology now. I used to be a technology like, no, it's going to take over the world. But now I'm like, no, I can't live without it.
Yeah, it's how you use it. It's probably like a credit card. Some people, oh, credit cards are bad, but it's not necessarily the credit card that's bad. It's how you use it.
Yes,
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm just curious. I wonder, have you ever heard of any studies that took into consideration how many people have Charles Bonnet syndrome 24/7 like yourself? That because that I've heard that and I'm aware of that, but that seems to be not the norm. It seems to be a lot of people say when I wake up to go to the bathroom at 2 in the morning, or when I'm dozing off, or
Mm.
when I'm stressed. Have you ever spoke with other people that have had it 24/7 like yourself?
Yeah, I have spoke with other people that experience it like me. I have applied to be part of some studies, which I was told I couldn't be because I do experience it 24/7. So I don't think, I don't know whether it's because there's less of us or just that they don't have that awareness of it yet because there aren't so many people coming forward with their experience. A lot more people are coming forward now than there were, but maybe they're just not enough coming forward that experience it all the time. I'm not sure. It's still very, even though CBS has been around 300 years, which blows my mind, when you say about 150 years ago, the technology and stuff, this has been around for 300 years. And it's only like in the last 5 or 7 years that it's really started to pick up the momentum and the awareness. It just blows my mind. I'm like, how has that happened?
Yeah. A lot of people get frustrated and they say, this has been around 300 years and they're not doing nothing and they don't want to help us. I've heard people say that. And
Mm,
I don't feel like people don't want to help. I just feel like it's just, first of all, because we've had this conversation a lot with a lot of people and experts and people that lead groups. And a lot of people say when you take some visual impairment, it's a small portion of the population. Then you take, I mean, it's large enough and it's significant, but it is a
yeah.
small portion. And then you take the people that have Charles Bonnet, which is not 100%, and maybe 40% of them, 50%, or even less. So then it gets to be a small part. And then most of the people, when you're young, you have good eyesight for the most part, not always, but because Charles Bonnet affects people that are young. But then a lot of people that get it are elderly. So when you're elderly, some people don't listen to the elderly or they don't
Mm,
support them. And they look at it and they frown and they immediately think dementia. And then also the fact
mm,
that people don't have a way, doctors don't have a way to fix it. So it makes somebody uncomfortable if you're an expert in something and you don't have a way to address it and help. Because I've heard doctors say, yeah, this sounds like Charles Bonnet. You have Charles Bonnet syndrome, but there's nothing I can do to make
mm.
the hallucinations go away. And that can be frustrating. I mean, you may not have the answer, but maybe figure a better way to respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think it's about bedside manner, isn't it, as well? Like, it's we could get into this, Shaimond, at the moment because, looking at the models of disability and the medical model of disability and the social model of disability and the charitable, like we could really start digging deep into it. And I don't think we've got long enough left on the podcast, but I think just let's just start somewhere, and that somewhere I believe is that awareness. Just everybody, any and if you're a doctor, yes, you might not be able to cure it, you might not be able to fix it, you might not be able to make it better, but just having that awareness and knowledge around it is the starting point to supporting somebody and helping them on the start of their journey with Charles Bonnet syndrome. I think we can't ignore it anymore. We can't just, it's a nothing. It's just something that comes with sight loss. We need to start looking at it as a condition in its own right, and that's why Judith as well has got its own taxonomy of diseases coding. She fought hard for that, and now she's trying to get it in the UK on the CVI forms, so that when you do start on your sight loss journey, that the CBS question is being asked right at the beginning of that journey. So they have a tick box they have to ask and tick and share information. So that is in the process at the moment in our government of being, hopefully, touch wood, added on, so that it's that initial pathway where it needs to be being flagged.
Yeah, that's so important, and I sure hope that gets included, and I'm sure it will get included. So I have another question. If there's someone that's listening to this podcast and they are a caregiver and they are having a difficult time supporting their loved one that has Charles Bonnet syndrome, what would you say to them?
So I'm not sure I'm the best one to answer that question because I found it difficult myself with my own family and friends to kind of navigate that CBS journey with them. They all, I know they all love me and they just want the best for me and they want everything to be roses and rainbows. And when I've approached family members and friends in the past and to try and talk to them about it, sometimes the barrier will go up and they feel uncomfortable, and because they don't have the answers for me, they just don't answer, and they'll change the subject, or they'll, oh, you'll be okay, you'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll pass, you'll be fine. So that just kind of that's not great for me, or I imagine for anybody else in that situation. Then you get your back up, then you feel like, oh, I'm not going to ask them again, or I won't tell them again next time because that's how they responded. So I think the best advice I could probably give is just listen. You won't have the answers, you won't have the cure, you won't have a tablet you can give them that will make it all better, but you do have the ability to listen, and that is something that will give somebody with Charles Bonnet syndrome so much. I used to say to my ex-husband, like, I just need you to listen to me. I just want to rant a little bit about it because it's just too much. So I just need you to listen. That's all I want from you. So yeah, just having that space, giving that loved one the space to be able to share with you what they need to. And then, if afterwards there is something that you could maybe help them with, like researching coping mechanisms, or looking at meditation or breathwork classes, or something that you could physically do to help them, then that's a great thing to do as well. But I think initially, not shutting somebody down, not saying, oh, it's all in your head, it doesn't matter. Negative words like that don't help. Just saying, what do you need from me? I'm here to hear you. What speak, share.
That is so great. Thanks for saying that. And that everybody wants to be heard, really, whether you realize it or not. And if you go to speak to someone and they immediately attack you, oh, that's not right. Wait, here we go again.
Mm.
That's not going to make anybody feel comfortable or feel secure. So thank you for
Yeah.
saying that, and I think that's so important. And I think everybody that has Charles Bonnet syndrome needs at least one person that they can talk to. Some people
Yeah.
are ashamed. You shouldn't be ashamed, and they don't want to talk about it. But you should have at least one, if not more, people that you can just say, "Hey, I saw this." And
Hmm.
this is floating around, and there was a tiger in my living room, or whatever the case may be. And
Can I just say as well, I think if those, there will be people that are afraid or they think, embarrassed about sharing or speaking to somebody else, like physically. So maybe starting off with a journal, and whether that's an audio journal, just using your voice notes on your phone, or if you're able to, writing in a book, and just writing down how you feel about the hallucinations that day, that hour, that week, what you've seen, how it made you feel, getting all of that out of your head onto paper, into a recording, just so it isn't there and it doesn't fester and it doesn't kind of eat away at you. So you might not be ready to speak to somebody in person, but I think it's great to just get it out in any way you can. So maybe starting at that and then building up to speaking to somebody.
Well, thanks for sharing that because I hear that journaling is so important in a lot of successful people, and also helps with stress management. And even myself, I was told to journal and I've done it, but I wasn't consistent. So I think I need to go back to doing that. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for your time, and thanks for all that you do for the CBS community, and taking the time to share your story is so important because like I said, there are some commonalities, but there are differences. So the more people that can share their story, the more people can maybe identify with it, or maybe figure out ways uh, to be able to incorporate some kind of help for people or anything. So I just appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely speaking.